Welcome to Serious Jibber Jabber. I'm here with my friend Jack White, whose phenomenal solo album Blunderbuss is his first #1 record. It's been nominated for 3 Grammy Awards. Jack, nice to have you here.
Nice to have me here.
Yeah, it's very good to be seen with you and to have you in this strange chamber.
I like this chamber you've built.
Yeah,
you built this yourself too.
I did. I was up.
Yeah.
It took me 4 days to build this. It's made of pure asbestos. You'll be dead in a year. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having
me. If you can
me.
even call this a show. I was thinking about today. I got a lot of people that asked me this about the time we met, and I thought it was probably a good place to start.
Yeah. The beginning.
The beginning. All I remember is I think it's the late 90s. I fly to Detroit to shoot a crazy video with Ted Nugent, I think, at his farm, where we shot guns and rode around on 3-wheeled vehicles. And then at the end of the shoot, I come back to the hotel and we all go play. We see a bowling alley.
Yeah.
We go bowling, and that's where you and Meg came over. And how long had the White Stripes been around at that point?
We were probably just starting at that point. I mean, we were just kind of fumbling around. It was a thought that, wow, this band could really work, and I don't think really Meg was convinced at the moment because it was so simple. It was the sort of thing you might think, oh, people might think this is foolish or something. But we were trying to be childish on purpose. So I think we were just sort of kicking around at the beginning then.
Kicking around, and you're in Detroit.
Yeah.
And you had been an upholsterer.
Yes.
And you take upholstering very seriously.
Yeah.
I apologize because you offered to upholster the chair for the Conan show, this show.
That offer still stands.
And I didn't take you seriously. I thought you were kidding.
No, I mean it.
And then later on, I found out you were serious.
I'll do it. I'll still do it.
All right.
Let's do it. Or we can do a whole new chair.
All right, upholster my chair for me. I'd like that.
I'll do it.
What about upholstering has helped you in your musical career?
The most important part about it was there was a moment when I was an apprentice upholsterer.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 15, I think, 15 or 16, and it was a mid-century modern couch, sort of like a Vladimir Kagan piece, I think. I know I had pink fabric with silver threads in it, and it was temped in the back. It was 3 staples in the back, just to keep it in place while the upholsterer was working on the front of it. And I just kept staring at this over and over again. I was cleaning up, sweeping up, and then I went working on it, and I just kept staring at it. That's the minimum amount of staples to hold that piece of fabric down. Now we can call that upholstered. You know, what would be the minimum? You couldn't do it with 2. You couldn't do it on the ends. The middle would be,
right.
You know, it thought in my brain, this is the middle. A table can have 3 legs and still stand, but 2, it'll fall. So that sort of image has been burned into my brain. I think about that probably once a week, that image of those 3 staples, and it's affected everything. I forced myself to do anything that I create, artistically and music-wise, whatever it is. I force it through the funnel of that idea, you know, and I have 3 lines or 3 concepts in a song, or I wrap it around storytelling, melody, and rhythm. The White Stripes, the whole band was based on the number 3. Yeah.
So it's really about simplicity and not. It's almost like a concept of minimalism, right? Would you say in some way, like, not anything more than you absolutely need?
Well, you have to be careful when you do things like that, because there's this element of pretension that I think other people. There's 2 ways about it. One way was it can be pretentious if you take it too seriously, if you become pedantic about it. But I looked at it as a way of limiting myself so that I could create more things, create more songs, because I'm so boxed in. My brain is forced to work with the tools that are at hand. I can't let some engineers fix it, or let the 3 other members in the band cover it up with what they're playing or whatever. I am in this box by myself, or me and Meg are in this box. So we have to work. And I still do this no matter what I do, even if I have a song, you know, there's 7 people backing me up or something. I'm still thinking about that for myself, where my head lays in the music or in the piece, to keep myself boxed in. Anytime I give myself free rein all the time, all the money, whatever, everything in front of me, it is not good for me. It makes me disinterested. I remember people ask me, like, when do you write songs? I write songs when there's a task to do, when there's a job to do. We have studio time booked tomorrow. And, you know, now what I do is I have my own studio, so I'll have people coming, like, you know, maybe next week I'll have the Peacocks, the gals will be coming to record. So the night before, maybe I will force myself to write songs because they're coming tomorrow. I have no choice. I have nothing for them to record. I have to write songs now. If I had said, well, I'll write some songs and when I'm done with them, I'll call you guys and show up, it won't happen. It just won't happen.
There's a famous saying that Samuel Johnson wrote the dictionary because he needed to pay his rent.
Right.
He had, the rent's due in a week, and he'd be like, all right, I'll give you a dictionary. And there is something to that. Comfort can kill an artistic impulse.
You have to, I mean, yeah, what good can come from comfort? I mean, it's not going to be art, you know? I mean, I think there's a false ideal out there to some people. Maybe younger people, they might think, you know, I could be an artist and I don't have to work. And, but I think calling yourself an artist, you have to work 3 times as hard as someone with a punch clock job. Because if you punch in, you have a responsibility at your job. But you can also do what you're told and work the machine, whatever you're doing, and do what's already there for you and do what you're told and do what's expected of you of that job. But if you're an artist and you have to create something from nothing, you know, there's nothing on this canvas, there's nothing on this tape. We have to create something that didn't exist before. I mean, that's ultra responsibility, super responsibility, isn't it?
So here's the question. It's not 1998 anymore. You're not in Detroit facing a choice between making it in music or upholstering for the rest of your life. You're now at a stage where you could be seen as comfortable. How do you create the situation where you're not comfortable? How do you create the situation where you are up against it?
Now it's really up to me, and it's really up to me to push myself and be harder on myself. It's not up to me now to say, oh, you know, I'm going to record on Pro Tools and let someone else fix it. If there's mistakes on it, I fix it with a mouse and use some program to tune it or whatever. I've really got to push myself to not take it easy and not take any kind of creature comforts of that scenario. Especially now, you know, it was being in the White Stripes. Half the trouble was already there. There was only me and Meg. There was a little amount of components involved. Half the work was done to keep it simple. But now, if I have a band, I have 2 bands now on tour with me now. So keeping my brain in that box is a lot more work. Which I like that. It's not, you know, that's a far cry from having writer's block or not knowing what to do with myself. I know there's a lot of work on the table for me to do whenever I feel like it, and I always feel like it because I want to create something every day. Every day when I wake up, that's what I want to do. It's not busy work. It's not anal retentive behavior, and I cannot wait to catch up to this idea I had 3 weeks ago that I haven't gotten to do yet. And I will say the selfish part of it is that in music you can do that, and like in film, if you're an actor or a director, you're at the mercy of bigger teams, you know, studio paying for it, make it, set it up, scheduling, all that. I can go out and record in the studio, and if it doesn't turn out well, I don't have to put it out, and I can throw it away and start over again. So there is a selfishness to that world where I can create every day because I want to, and I don't have to answer to anybody, and I don't take that lightly. I respect that.
Is there anything about this, because you grew up very Catholic? I mean, very, very Catholic, very Catholic family, big family, and there is sometimes I sense, and maybe it's
a little bit of guilt. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what it is? It's you got to work for it. It's that feeling that you always need to earn it. You always need to, and that it is ingrained in Catholicism that you, I don't know, you dismiss praise. It's just stuff it gets in your bone marrow. Yeah. People say, congratulations, thanks, let's put that aside. We got to get to work. Yeah. And that's always the sense. Do you feel like that's something that probably got into your DNA a little bit?
I guess we have a job, you know, if you're raised in any kind of faith or beliefs or even political beliefs, you know, you get to a point when you're an adult and you have to assess how much of that you want to let still exist in your brain and dictate how you live your life. And religion's the toughest of all of those, because if you really have questions that reach outside the bounds of the religion you were raised in, you've really got problems, you know. But as you're talking about, like the things on the side of it, like saying, just even from being a big Catholic family, if you have that many people in the house or that many people older than you, you've got to determine, what, as you're older, what of those guilt trips that you were given or those lessons you were taught and anything that you learned that was beautiful or terrible, which of it do you listen to? Which of it do you keep going in your life? What do I do with my kids now when I'm trying to teach them something? And I catch myself doing, giving my kid a guilt trip or something. And it's an ultra-Catholic way of raising somebody. And sometimes I'm like, it's a good thing, though. I mean, that actually works, or there's times where actually it makes sense, I didn't dismiss it completely 100%. It's never useful.
Well, it's funny because it's there for a reason. Mm-hmm. There was a reason that that some of these rules were put in place. I think it's very late 20th century to debunk it all.
Yeah.
And then you think, actually, the thing that I'm happiest for, that I think I got maybe from my parents, maybe from Catholicism, or whichever way that I was raised, or being from a large family, as I got this idea, this work ethic. Mm-hmm. I like to work really hard, and I believe in hard work, and I think that's the hardest thing. I believe in talent.
Yeah.
And clearly you're someone who's got talent, but I think talent is overrated. I think talent's important, but the real accelerant, the real coefficient that's the mystery number that makes the whole thing work is hard freaking work.
Any of your idols, I'm guessing, and any of my idols, and you look back and you see the things they've done, the footage and the recordings or the writings or whatever it is, you'll see these people hard at work. And even if they have things where they have an obsession or they have some kind of mental problem or whatever, what's happening is them working consistently and over again. And we were talked about Johnny Carson earlier today. I mean, he was so well read. He read every book. I mean, how do you have time to read that many books with the busiest schedule as you have, and because you're just obsessed with pushing yourself forward. I'm reading Steve Martin's autobiography right now.
Yeah.
And there's this thing been going on lately, and it's playing live shows around the world. And there's this thing going on with audiences now, and it's happening in Australia, in Europe, in America. And these crowds are just like finishing songs and nobody's clapping. It's very strange. It's sort of like, well, what's going on here? And I don't use a set list, and I'm very off the cuff on stage. So I've always felt about myself that I'm like a stand-up comedian on stage. I treat the scenario exactly like they do. Every time I hear a stand-up comedian talk about his craft, what he's doing, like, oh, that comedian was ripping off my jokes and they were taking my material, or I did this joke and it bombed, I took it out of the set, the next joke I told murdered. I was like, that's exactly how I play music on stage. And if the song, if no one claps, like if they're too cool to clap, like say if you're in a scenario where like some hipster thing where they're like too cool to clap, they love the show, but they're not gonna. They're lying to me. Do you know what I mean? Like a comedian, if he tells a great joke, people aren't like too cool to like. You can't help yourself. You laugh. You know? So, but people can decide if they want to clap or not. And so, if they're lying to me, like they like this song, but they didn't clap for it, I have no idea what to do with the next song. I don't know what my next move is. A comedian knows what his next move is immediately.
Well, you think I think they don't understand that you need them.
Exactly.
And the thing is, if people go and see Jack White,
they're in control.
But they don't know that. They have no idea that you're getting anything from them.
I hand out pamphlets before every show.
I've gotten those pamphlets. Please enjoy me.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's really the saddest pamphlet I've ever read before a rock show.
But I'll tell you, I was reading the Steve Martin biography, the autobiography, and I think in the foreword he says, on stage when I was a stand-up comedian, there was no time for enjoyment. There's no time to enjoy myself. I'm too busy thinking about the next move. And I think that's exactly how I feel all the time. I never on stage sit and I'm like, yes, this is great. And I feel the whole song for the whole time. I'm loving this. And the minute I pass 3 seconds of that feeling, it just starts to dissipate and disappear from me. I have to shake it off and push forward and move forward. Even if the song is fraught with mistakes or problems, if I know in my brain I'm pushing forward and not sitting there laughing and having a blast, I know I'm getting somewhere, somehow, somewhere.
Well, there's I think about the instruments you choose. You go out of your way to play instruments that are hard to play, that are hard to keep in tune. Have you ever wanted to give in and say, I just want to go get myself a killer, amazing Collings that just plays like butter?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The temptation comes up all the time, and it's a tough thing to know and see your peers doing those things, and nobody cares. The musicians don't really care that much, and the crowd definitely doesn't really even notice or know what's going on. But I know, you know, and that becomes a big question about art. If you do something that's important and extremely involved in pushing yourself and making something beautiful happen, but no one will know it, should you do it? Or should you cheat? Because no one will know that you're cheating either. It's a tough decision you have to be hard on yourself to really make, and I do that all the time. And sometimes, yeah, like, I mean, you know, I tell people about it almost because maybe sometimes I feel like, you know, if I'm going to go through all this trouble, maybe I kind of want people to know that how much trouble I'm going through. It's kind of stupid, though, but almost like it becomes a different battle here. But
you want to say this is a plastic guitar from the Sears and Roebuck catalog or whatever in 1965, and the strings are 4 inches from the fretboard, and it is a monster bitch to play. Yeah. And but that is, you like the struggle.
Yeah.
You like.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was in your documentary, Great White North, we talk about you. The great rock cliche or visual cliche is all the picks taped to the stands that you can just grab one. If the pick breaks or you lose it, you just grab another one. You keep the picks back so you literally have to walk back and get another pick. And when I heard you say that, I thought, that seems Catholic to me. Like,
flagellation.
Why don't you just, in between chords, flagellate yourself on the back and then a few more? But that's the sense I got.
It is, man. I don't know, but I know it feels. Feels like I'm getting somewhere. I know that was a tough move to do. I was watching with my daughter. She's like 6 years old, Scarlett, the other day, and she's starting to get into W.C. Fields now. And we're watching.
Who's probably one of my favorites.
Really?
Maybe my favorite. Next to, it's like Marx Brothers, W.C. Fields, but W.C. Fields, fantastic.
Well, I showed him that one with the Carl Lafong, you know, that in the bed, and then she's explaining why does he keep saying Carl Lafong and spelling the whole thing out? And saying it's funny that, you know, he's making such a big deal to spell this name out and talk about this damn name over and over again. Yeah. You know, and you know, trying to, you know, at the age of 6, just implanting this idea in your brain that there's in her brain that that, you know, there's seeds to things in the future. She'll understand that how things are constructed. But, you know, she was watching this one where he's doing juggling. You know, he did a routine where he's juggling cigar boxes. Right. You know, taking the middle one and flipping it. And I flashed back for a second that my dad showed me that when I was a kid, too. And we were watching, and he was laughing. And at the end, he just looked over at me and said, "Try it sometime." You know? And I thought, he's right. It looks really easy, but that took a lot of work, and that took a lot of determination to care enough to think that, I mean, you got to hand it to those guys, jugglers, street performers. I mean, those guys work really hard at what they're doing, and they're accomplishing something. Because here's the deal: and all the books and all the movies and documentaries and all that stuff that are made about these people that we are interested in or that we think that accomplish something amazing. You know, who wants to hear that they took the easy way out? Right. Who wants to hear that they cheated? Nobody wants to hear that, you know. And we were just talking about, you know, I told you I was watching these Larry Bird clips at like 4 in the morning a couple weeks ago for God knows whatever reason, but I just didn't know much about him. How hard on himself he was, you know. Everyone else, you know, like I think McHale or someone said on the team. You know, at the end of the night, hey man, I go home. I got a life. You know, he's going back out and popping 3-pointers in the empty arena by himself.
He would do it in the off season in French Lick. He had a hoop, and he would just shoot over and over and over again in his spare time. And it's funny because I'm just listening to the people you reference across the spectrum. You know, whether it's in music, whether it's in comedy, like a W.C. Fields or a Steve Martin, Johnny Carson. There's a common thread, which is they all prepared. It's all preparation. Yeah. And you know, you can sound like an old man, but it's not fun to tell. I tell when young people ask me, I'd like to do what you're doing, or I'm interested in how do I do that? It's not fun, but I have to tell them, you have to work really hard, and you always have to prepare. And you have to have your shit together and really have it locked down. It's not a fun, and then go into a situation, and when you've done that, then that gives you the freedom to throw it out the window and play.
Yeah.
But it's not a fun message.
And it's going to get worse because the technology that's available now is all about, as technology has always been, making things less labor intensive and removing the labor from this whatever thing it is, whatever idea it is. So as technology gets more and more down the line of, you don't need to sing in tune, we can sing in tune for you. Press this button and it will tune you. I mean, it's going to get worse and worse. And it's up to I have a big chip on my shoulder about responsibility for technology. You know, like when the telephone first came out, people learned telephone etiquette, you know, and people actually said hoy.
Ahoy. Ahoy, hoy.
Yeah, hoy, hoy.
Ahoy, hoy.
You know, there was telephone etiquette. It was a politeness, a new kind of politeness, not just taking politeness from the parlor and put it onto this device. It was a new kind of politeness because you couldn't see the other person. And I think for a long time, technology, even Victrolas, you know, how that was done, there was a manners and politeness that were attached to it, responsibility for the new technology. But I think nowadays, the new technology is here, give me the toy, and I don't give a damn anything to do with anything rules. No rules about the toy at all, just give me the toy. Meaning, we're out to dinner right now, and I could spend the whole time with this BlackBerry doing this, and I'm going, and not paying any attention to you.
But the whole concept of going out to dinner and having a social, you know, it's when the restaurant was first invented. You think about that. You just imagine that restaurants always existed.
Yeah.
But apparently restaurants, someone invented the idea of let's go out to eat and you can have dinner. I mean, people had gone to taverns before, but a restaurant, and when people first went to restaurants, it was thought to be very rude to have other people seeing you eat. That was thought of as rude, something we don't think at all about anymore. But that was thought of as rude. Strangers shouldn't see you putting food in your mouth, so they had to separate people and have them behind curtains, and things erode. Things erode, and now, you know, can you imagine a McDonald's where there's curtains? You can get your Big Mac and go behind a curtain.
But we don't see we don't hear any talk at all about it, only like as jokes of people being rude with it, but whatever, that's just how things go nowadays. You're not going to stop the monster, you know, the snowball of it rolling down. But I'm a believer that new technology means new responsibility. In art forms, too, if you are a photographer, I mean, you have Photoshop now. I mean, now, if you're going to call yourself a photographer and be one and dedicate your life to that, you have a big monster hanging out in front of you that can make you cheat on everything. Contrast, lighting, aperture, everything. You can cheat on everything. And it's your duty to decide how much you're going to let yourself fall down that well. Because now if I show you a great photograph, it's beautiful, you know, whatever, 30, 40 years ago, it was, who took that photo? How did that happen? How did he capture that moment?
Right.
And now it's probably fake, or it's probably altered to look that good.
There's probably an Ansel Adams app.
I'm sure there
You can just take something with your iPhone and push it, and then it's just every bit as good.
Some people will say, who cares? So what? The image is great. It's two-dimensional. Anyways, what does it matter how it was created? But to be a photographer and dedicate yourself to that, you have to really be able to live with yourself, that you know that just taking the easy way out like that through technology is not always fulfilling either.
You mentioned image, and it's funny because it's a quote that you have in a scene that really struck me in a documentary We May Go Through Canada. And at one point you said one of the reviews that you liked the most, and you'll remember it better than I do, is I think someone said, you know, the White Stripes and are
We're simultaneously the most real and most fake band in the world. Yeah.
Most, and I think you said fake first, real second. Most fake and most, and because of that, most real band in the world. And I thought that is a fascinating statement. You know, obviously you play with image, you play with how things look. It's very important to you, and yet mostly what we've talked about here for a long time is stripping things of ornamentation when you actually do the work. So it's this crazy contrast.
Yeah. I'd love to you know, extrapolate. What do you call it?
There's no extrapolating here.
I'd love to explore.
We don't have the equipment for extrapolating. It's very expensive.
It's like spelunking.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful point of how, when we started the White Stripes, for example, and I still do it now, and we did when we were on your show the other day, you know, for me, the easy way out is to go up in jeans and a T-shirt. And but what comes along with that is a generation for the last 20, 30, or however years since punk, that type of dress was considered real. You were real.
Yep.
You weren't the Soul Review. You weren't the the Beatles dressed up on Ed Sullivan or whatever. You were real because you were in jeans and a t-shirt. And that choice was also the same choice that tons of other people are making. They're all making that choice when they walk out on stage. You have to make a choice. You can go in what you slept in last night, or you can dress up in a suit or something like that. But the idea that became authenticity, that gives you a license of authenticity, always bugged me. And when Meg and I were starting and we were playing blues music, and this is the music that was closest to our hearts, and I started wrapping around these other ideas, and I thought, the best way to show how real this music is to give them an artifice, a presentation that's the aesthetic is all red, white, and black. And it's presented to them that if someone went walk into that bar and say, "This is bullshit. Look at this. Oh, this is a real blues band. The brother and sister. She's in pigtails. They got peppermints painted on everything. I mean, this is whatever." Right. But those are the same people I don't want to connect with. I don't want to share with them because they can't see past that. And that's like the ultimate test. If you couldn't see past that and realize that this music is actually ultra real and full of mistakes, messed up, and at least attempting to try to get down to something dirty, And I don't want to use the word authentic because I think authenticity is a trap. I think it's a waste of time, everybody's time. And authenticity in music has been something that everyone's chased, for a long time. There's these different periods of music, where the big band periods, or even acoustic music periods into big band periods, country music, ultra produced things, now computerized music, digital music, where people have all said, yeah, but that's not the real deal. I like this person, yeah, but he's not the real deal. This guy's the real deal, and you have to decide for yourself what that means.
Well, it's like in whatever in I'm going to say 68, 69 in music. Everything's gotten psychedelic. Everything started to, and then the band comes along, and everyone decides now we've got to all get back to what's real. Yeah. But then people realize things drift again, and who's to say what's real? So everyone's trying to get back to what they think is the real roots music. What
music is your favorite music? What type, what genre, or kind of?
It's funny because I
always imagine that it's rockabilly is your favorite music.
Rockabilly,
I don't know if that's...
rockabilly was what grabbed me completely. I don't come from a musical family at all, and I wasn't a particularly. I was really interested in music, but resisted anyone trying to teach me anything. And then I was in college, and I'm going to this Ivy League college, and it hit me. Sun Session, Elvis Presley got re-released, and then I started listening to Jerry Lee Lewis. I got the poster in my room in college was the Jerry Lee Lewis on the flatbed from High School Confidential, and I got hit hard, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but just started singing it. I had been a bad drummer, like a pretty mediocre drummer, but I was passionate about drumming. I had a really crappy set. I bought the cheapest set I could get because I didn't have a lot of money. I got a Courtley, and I've asked people all over the world, have you ever heard of a Courtley? No one's heard of it. But I still have it. It's they made like 3 of them and then said, we're not a drum company. Started meeting Radiators or something. And then when I got out to LA, it was just in me. And I went and got a $90 guitar at Freedom Guitar and got the Mel Bay chord book.
Nice.
And just sat there for a long time. And when I was a young comedy writer and single and had no girlfriend, I just used to go home every night from whatever show I was working on, and I would sit there with the TV on and for 6 hours straight teach myself chords. But what really grabbed me was rockabilly, and it's so visceral and just like the original Train Kept a Rollin'. It was just, it's borderline unpleasant. That's what I've always been. I don't know. There was some kind of intensity to it, and I wish. And I never really got much beyond that. I mean, I always try to get more sophisticated about my playing, and it always just snaps back. And I have my my real outlet. I mean, the thing that you do finds you more than you find it.
I loved that very much. When I was in high school, I got into surf music and rockabilly music, and I was going to see any of those kind of bands that I could. And after a while, a little bit of me started to lose the attention for, you know, the stylistic people who were trying to be like retro and recreate a moment in time.
It's gone.
And dress that way. Yeah, it's like it's kind of nice for a party or Halloween or something like that, but to dedicate your lifestyle to this one moment in American culture history, this 1 year, it's nifty in one way, but another way I thought, well, it's a dead end. I mean, you can't explore that music in a bigger way as a songwriter. You know, I listen to Gene Vincent to this day, and I'll listen to the day I die. I love him.
Yeah.
And I play his music, and I've covered his songs and stuff like that. And
Isn't everything in E?
Yeah.
I think everything is in E. That's what I liked. Is E's great.
Yeah.
And but he had one of the great guitar players.
Oh yeah, Cliff Gallup.
Cliff Gallup. It's funny because you always talk about how maybe your favorite song is by Son House.
Yeah.
Grin in Your Face.
Grin in Your Face.
I was always surprised by that because I appreciate it, but it's almost like that was a religious light that hit you when you heard Grin in Your Face. But Son House, when you listen to it, it's so primal. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Hand claps, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, the message that's in it, too, besides how it was recorded and how it sounded from him and how his hand claps are off time, even with there's no music behind it. It's several things at once. It's blues. It's like a work song. It's a religious song. It's a song that's from one person against the world, one person against his own friends and family, which is sort of the, you know, a hallmark of the blues. You know. But I think even the message more so, but it's probably something that has always bugged me since I was a kid, and probably will always bug me later on, is how much do you care what other people think? I mean, like the comedian on stage, you tell the joke and nobody laughs. You have to take another step, a new step. You can cower and fall down and die from it. You can let it affect you that way, or you can let it push you to do something new and move forward to something positive, which I think God has also cursed us that we can't really enjoy the good moment too after that at times, which is a shame. But the idea, you know,
what I've learned is I'm very good at hating the bad moment and terrible at enjoying the good moment. So I can have 9 good moments in a row, and then I have the bad moment, and I savor it. I like ladle myself like it's it's gravy, and I'm poor, and I spend a long time making everyone around me suffer, and I suffer, and then they say, like, you just had 9 great shows. Why are you focusing on this one? And I think, I don't know, because it feels good to hate myself. I don't know.
It's not fair, though, because also, like, when there was something good does happen and you try to enjoy it in a way, if you enjoy it too much, you fall into traps of being egotistical or something like that, or people around you just being turned off by your own love of something good that happened to you. And so there's this extremely narrow window when you create things and make things that didn't exist that you have to live in, which is very hard to do because to create a balance, you know, to know that wasn't working, that was in the bad world, that worked, that was in the good world, and how much you let other people around you, your friends and family, see of how much that affects you, what people thought of that, what people thought of that, and how all you can do is to let it push you forward and just take everything like even keel. Like, that was bad, that was good, that was bad, that was good.
Well, okay, so here's the trap, because you've had a lot of critical acclaim.
Yeah.
You are...
At times,
Well, I would say fairly consistently, you know, I mean, you probably can search out the negative, because that's the... But from my point of view, you, more than most everybody I know in your field, has had a lot of musical... has had a great deal of critical acclaim, and then the danger becomes, I like it. I like people liking me.
Sure,
and we've all been there. It's really nice to be liked. And then when you do something that isn't so popular, it doesn't, you can tell yourself, I need to endure people not liking me to do the good work. But it feels really good. And
it's a dangerous zone.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. And it's not fair that it's dangerous. It should be climbing up the mountain and you're at the top of the mountain of whatever, and okay, you did what it took. You didn't cheat and take a helicopter to the top of the mountain. You really climbed up the top of the mountain. But that when you get up there, it doesn't matter if you took the helicopter. It doesn't matter if you climbed and got all bloody from it. The rewards up there are fleeting, and they don't really have legs. They're fleeting, and you can't hold on to them.
Right.
Other people won't let you hold on to them, really. I mean, try to do it. I mean, try to talk about yourself and a good thing that happened to you for more than 10 seconds.
I heard a really funny story about Arthur Miller. I don't know if it's true, but I think, let's pretend it's true.
Okay.
Because this is for the internet and it doesn't matter. But I think Arthur Miller once said that when he first wrote Death of a Salesman, everyone said, "Oh my God, you're a genius. You wrote Death of a Salesman." And then everything else he wrote, people said, "It's good, but it's no Death of a Salesman."
Right.
And then at the end of his career, they said, "You know, Death of a Salesman wasn't that great." It's like, I don't know. If you're, I don't know, if you're looking for that.
Story ever written. What do you think is sadder story, Death of a Salesman or Lord of the Flies?
I gotta go with Lord of the I just have a real, when people taunt a heavy person, I'm serious. I can't watch a movie where a heavy person is taunted, and I don't know why.
How about the actors they hired to play the person? How does that audition go? That seems really awkward.
I can't do it. I can't watch Gilbert Grape. I can't. I won't watch Gilbert Grape for that reason.
Right. Have you seen the movie, the documentary, The Fog of War?
Yes.
Robert McNamara.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm entranced by it. I think I've watched it like 6 times now.
What is it about The Fog of War that?
Someone just said you should check this out, and I turned it on and I said, oh, I don't even know. I knew nothing about Robert McNamara, and I'd never even seen a picture of him. And I thought I know a pretty fair amount of U.S. history and stuff, but I just didn't know anything about him, you know. And then that he was president of Ford Motor Company, and then he became Secretary of Defense.
I think the idea at the time in Camelot was we can hire incredibly smart young people and they'll solve all the world's problems.
Yeah.
So when you think about, when you're from Detroit, so you understand, if you think about an auto executive in 1960, how they were gods, you know?
Right.
And he was this brilliant guy, and so he comes into the Kennedy administration and they bring him in. You know, he continues. Lyndon Johnson begs everyone to stay, so he stays with Johnson, and then he ends up running this war, which is a colossal mistake, and he eventually realizes that. And so it's, that documentary is really poignant. Because
He's brilliant, but he's also like a dad. It's almost like he took someone's dad on a 50s block and put him in these most powerful positions in the world. Yeah. I mean, he was so heavily involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which really, we came so close to the world ending at that point. And also Ford Motor Company and safety and introducing safety ideas to cars, which Tucker had tried to do but failed. And it's these people like that that are so important to world history that not that many people even know their names or saw the picture, like I didn't know his name.
So how did you get, I mean, what is it you're watching? Are you watching the History Channel? Like when you're trying to just relax, what are you watching?
I really do enjoy documentaries. I could read an encyclopedia all day long. I prefer books that are about things that really happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, my wife loves fiction. She's very smart, and she's constantly, and she's reading great fiction. My wife
like
is
Harry Potter and stuff.
Well, the really good Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You know, the Sorcerer's Stone, but she's the classics. You know, not this whatever later stuff that I think really perverted Harry's nature. But my wife is I think she's really brilliant, and she's constantly reading. Like I'll be getting ready for bed, and she's in bed reading. She's reading Chekhov. You know, she's reading this great stuff, and she'll be saying, you know, you should read this, and I'll say, you know what, life is too short, and I want to know what happened. So I almost exclusively read.
She said that, or you said that?
I said that. I said I want to know what happened. I want to know what happened. I want to know, and so I'm constantly getting, you know. There's a picture of me someone took in the 90s where I finally went on a vacation, and I'm sitting on the beach, and it's like beautiful. It's like Anguilla or something. I'm sitting on the beach, and I'm wearing like 900 sunblock. But I'm sitting on the beach, and it's beautiful, and it's this color photograph, and I'm reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. It's just this like giant swastika on it, and it's this thick, and I'm like, vacation, you know. I'm reading about, you know, the failed Russian offensive. I'm fascinated.
What'd you think of the Lincoln movie?
I really love the Lincoln movie. And since this is a zone to be incredibly honest, I love the Lincoln movie. I thought it was fantastic. I love Daniel Day-Lewis because he portrayed the real Lincoln, down to every single actor who's ever portrayed Lincoln has done him with this deep baritone. Yeah, Lincoln had a high-pitched voice, and I thought he just made me love. I love Lincoln, know way too much about Lincoln, and thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
There were a couple things I wish the movie had ended.
I don't know why they had to kill the Lincoln character after the end.
They didn't. That was the same thing. I thought there's a part in the movie where Lincoln says he's got to go to the theater, and he has this line. He says, "Well, gentlemen, I'd like to stay." No, he said, "I have to go, though I'd like to stay." And then there's a long walk off. If the movie had ended there, I'd have cried for 7 days. I didn't need to then, like, we know what happened. And I thought that would have been more beautiful. And I have calls into Spielberg, and he's not returned.
It was cool that they showed a performance in a theater and Lincoln's son to make you even think that that might have been American.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean,
at least it didn't show a bloody like.
Yeah,
but
I
agree with what you're saying.
I thought that would have been a nice way to end it, and I was literally in the lobby telling people that. Like, why is Conan O'Brien?
But you know, the trailer threw me off. I thought that when I saw the Lincoln trailer, like, oh man, I thought this was going to be great, and I saw the trailer and I just thought, damn it, it ain't. Like it's too, like they got all the components, they got the great costume designers or the set directors and all that stuff, and everything's there. But it's not going to be what I thought it was going to be. But the trailer was wrong. I went in and then, you know, 20 minutes, I thought, this is really good.
All right. Well, this brings up a good area. You are an opinionated guy. You like having control, as do I. Is it hard for you to watch things and step back and enjoy them and experience them without editing them in your mind and moving them around? Like, you know, you've seen a movie and you're thinking, no, that's not what I would do. Or you're listening to a band, or you're...
Yeah, what happens? Well, I know I like something when I don't notice how it was made. If
you don't see the seams.
Yeah, if I hear a song and I don't like, oh, they turned reverb on that part of the song, or they added a digital delay onto his voice or something like that.
Or they kind of borrowed that lick.
Yeah, when I heard them, when I hear them, what their conversation was making it, it bugs me. Then I can't enjoy it so much. When it goes by, the scene goes by, or the painting, or the song goes by, and you don't notice anything about how it was made, then I think that's a mark of something good. That's hard to get to that point too. I mean, it's hard to create something like that.
Let's talk about, if you don't mind, this. I went to Third Man Records and got to make a record with you, which is still one of the tour and then that experience, one of my favorite experiences in my life that I'll always treasure. People later on asked me, what's it like at Third Man Records? And I thought, this is tough. And then I said, you know, Jack is in complete, I've never met anyone, and I mean this as a compliment, who has completely invented his environment. You've created an environment out of whole cloth for yourself. And at first I was thinking it's kind of like an Andy Warhol thing where you've created, you know, the factory, and you've created this aesthetic and this group of people and this look and this tribal, you know, happening. And then I thought, you know what? It's really a Batman villain. Like you know, whenever you're like, whether it's Mr. Freeze or the Riddler or the Joker, what I always loved about Batman, the classic TV show, is he always got his people to wear musical notes. Or the Riddler hired guys. He went and found common criminals, and he got them to wear turtlenecks that have a question mark on them, and he also got them to buy into the Riddler's aesthetic, and it was beautiful. And I thought, like, let's talk about that. That, to me, that is a great achievement.
Well, thank you, and I feel good. I feel proud that you're saying that to me, because I know that Third Man, it came the way a lot of times the way I make things, which is it's sort of, there are these happy accidents. I stumble into it, and it gets pushed in these baby steps, and something in the end says, oh wow, that thing exists now. And that building I bought was just a place to store my gear. I was renting all these storage units for all the tour gear. When we come home from tour, I store all this drums and amps and stuff somewhere. I was like, it'd be nice to just have a building where it was all there and it was on racks, and I could get that keyboard or that guitar and take it to the studio, not buried away in some storage unit where you need a padlock and it's nighttime with a flashlight, so you get a keyboard, you know, somewhere it's available. That's all I wanted to do with that building. And then I thought, well, you know what, it'd be nice. I got the White Stripes vinyl rights back. The years at the time period had been used up, and now I can print them, and they were out of print. So I don't like records being out of print. I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think records should always be in print. If it was like, if Columbia Records put out some record by any artist, they should always have a stack of them on a shelf somewhere, even if there's 10 of them, you know, that you can get. So I thought, well, you know, I want to put the White Stripes old vinyl records in print and keep them in print forever. And I hired a couple of these guys, the Bens, to do that. So that was going to be it. And I said, oh, you know, let's put a store in the front. There's a little room in the front. Let's put a little store there. And people can ring the buzzer. Maybe once a week someone will come by, and we'll come up and we'll sell them a 45, you know. That'll happen like once a week, you know. And then baby step, and then we had to put a photo studio in the back. So it would be nice to be able to rehearse for tour here for lighting and monitors, to put a stage there. And as you know, you ended up playing a live show at that stage. That became a live venue. And now we have a lathe cutting studio behind that stage where we cut the shows direct to acetate, which is the only place in live venue in the world that's doing that. It goes directly to vinyl, and the crowd can see through the window what's happening, and they're completely involved, and they feel, they know what's happening. You're making a record here. It's almost like a TV show now, making this live record. So this is all just from a place I wanted to get my gear. So it was like letting things naturally happen, you know.
But this feels like the story of your whole process, because to go way back to
the caveman days.
The caveman days, when you discovered fire with your friend Og.
Good guy.
Yeah, really good guy. Really pity that you had to crush his skull with a handmade stone tool. No, you know, I remember, I don't know if I read somewhere, you told me somewhere, when you were just starting out and you're playing with Meg, you were thinking, hey, if we could just get up on stage and play in front of people.
Yeah.
So that would be cool. And what happens is, it's a constant upping of the ante.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is, you know, if I could just get on stage and play, and we could get a few people to come see us, I'd be happy. If we could just have a couple more songs, if we could have a few more gigs, if we could make a record, if we could tour, if we could, okay, now we've got one smash record, if we could have another one, if we could, you know, Grammys, if we could tour the world, if we could make a documentary, it's a never-ending upping of the ante. And now you're talking about, you know, if we could have a space where we're making the records, I mean, you've taken it to that extreme. And
a lot of musicians, though, you say a band, like, they will do that. Like, it would be great if we had a band. It would be great if we got on stage. What if we wrote our own songs? They get to that point, and I think at some point they say, yeah, you know, I got to go back to my day job, and we got to do that thing, and we'll play another gig next month, and then, you know,
it's gone.
They lose either the ability or the desire to push themselves over and over and over and over again, and that's the only thing you can really do. You can get lucky. You could have some lucky break or something, and it catapults you to some level, and then you have some decisions to make up there. But in the natural way of things, if you basically have moments where you can stop and say, like we said about McHale and Larry Bird, like, you know, hey, I have a life, man. I mean, you can say that at any moment and say, hey, I like music, but, you know, I'm not gonna spend 24 hours a day thinking about it. But, you know, that's what comes from that. You know, if there's no pushing, I think, you know, we were saying earlier about all the idols that we've had, people we are interested in from the past. I think they all seem to be people who push and push and push. And I can imagine, even if you had no talent at anything and no ability to bring anything to life, not funny, not interesting or whatever, even if you pushed yourself and worked constantly at it, something would happen. I mean, how could it not? Something eventually would click.
Yeah, no, you know.
You'd at least find out where you were supposed to be, or what zone you were supposed to be in. You know, maybe, you know, I'm not supposed to be an actor. Maybe I'm supposed to be a comedian. Maybe I'm not supposed to be a musician. Maybe I'm supposed to be a painter. At some point, something would click, I think, pushing yourself that much.
Here's the good news and the bad news. I can look at a guy like David Letterman and say, well, why isn't he happy? Because he really achieved everything.
Sure.
But I know that there are some people who are 20 years younger than me who are like, well, you know, why would he be unhappy? Because he, you know, and you think nobody feels that way. Nobody feels like they're done. Nobody feels like they're done. Nobody, I mean, it's like a mixture of...
You never arrive. I don't think you ever arrive.
You never arrive, and also, I don't know, like I wanted to bring up, I don't know, anger, or sometimes people say to me, like, you seem like I can get cranky, I can get angry, and I say, yeah, I just think that's part of this spice that keeps me going.
Yeah.
If I was completely contented, that would be it. But
Yeah,
anger and frustration seems to be necessary components. I think the minute you don't have those.
Yeah, if you eliminate all those other emotions, you're sort of like, I mean, it's sort of, in a way, it's sort of easy to be a nice guy and be like happy-go-lucky and say, hey, yeah, you know, but maybe that kind of attitude, it's harder to get things done and get things accomplished and get things to happen and push yourself if you don't allow all those other emotions to exist. I often think that society is missing out on something right now to think that anger and hostility are things that are in the violent realm of emotions, that they're all completely 100% bad and should be avoided at all costs. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, that those emotions are very much relevant in, say, blues music. They're very much relevant in painting, you know, and rock and roll, punk rock, all of that. I mean, those are, if they had ignored those emotions and not thought about them and expressed them, they wouldn't have been able to explore those ideas. And again, almost happy-go-luckiness is sort of like I was saying, like on stage, you can be like, oh, I'm enjoying this song. It feels great. This feels good. You know, this is a smile on my face. This is a blast. Okay, that's kind of easy to do. That's sort of having a party. You know, you can be like a heavy metal band and be partying and you know, all that. And I don't know if that's art or music. It's just maybe something else. It's another name. There's
got to be something inside you that's churning it up. There has to be. Yeah. That's got to be part of the creative process.
They're self-inflicted wounds, you know. I mean, that's the responsibility that comes with freedom. You know, freedom to be an artist. That's a huge freedom, and at the same time has to be a huge responsibility, or nothing will be accomplished. And it's not fair to other people. You know, it's like the lazy so-and-so, whatever, who's just sitting around, and the other people, his roommates, are keeping him alive and keep giving him shelter and all that stuff, you know, like you can get away with that for a minute, but after a while, you know, everyone else is like, hey man, you know, we're not all here to just take care of you. You know, you have to take care of yourself. And I think those are really heightened in the world of art and creativity. You have to think about all those things. I sometimes think too much about that, about the temptations to take those easy ways out all the time, because I see other people doing it. I think, oh, damn. I mean, even to show other people, I'll have another musician in my studio and say, we did this song, and this is how we did it, and this is the machine we did it on, and these are the tools we did it with, and have another musician look at it and say, okay. Well, yeah, well, we just recorded our album, and we did it totally the easy way, and we didn't record it on Pro Tools, and I had these 4 engineers do it, and they fixed everything on it, and it's coming out next week. So, like, there's a first thing I'm like, damn, man. I guess I could do that, and I could do that, and no one would even know. No one would even know I did it that way, and I could. Dude, I can't do it.
Well, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I swear to God, there's like a religious, quasi-Catholic component to. I would know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel that way about comedy. When you cheat, you know it, and it doesn't. It feels horrible. And
if something good happens, you want it to be. It was created under circumstances you can be proud of. It's not. You know, something that was like someone else did the work, or a computer did the work, or something like that. The photographer I was talking about earlier, if someone says, oh, that was an amazing photo you took, well, we photoshopped the whole thing. I mean, can you be proud of that? I guess you can, but I wouldn't be proud of it.
I think more than anybody I can think of in music off the top of my head, you work so well with women, Meg, Allison Mosshart, you mean current band, phenomenal.
Judi Dench.
Yeah, Dame Judi Dench, the music that you cut with her and that erotic film you made. You guys, why
do I find women so attractive? Is that what you're trying to ask me?
Yeah, because I don't get it. I like men. I like I
always knew that.
I like a naked male body.
Sometimes the sunsets that we spend together in a parked car on top of a hill, I sometimes wonder if that's how you're.
You mean when I try and hold your hand?
Yeah.
But then pretend I'm reaching for the gear shift?
Yeah. I wonder. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but you've
working with women.
You're just it comes so naturally to you, and I think you don't. I don't see other musicians and artists making that connection as easily as you. I don't know if you've ever given it any thought. Like, how is it that I communicate so well with women?
It's an interesting question. In my mind, like when asked cold, it feels like I don't discriminate in any way, age, race, gender at all. I just work with people that are cooking and they're pushing themselves.
You've never worked with a baby.
I have not yet.
You hate babies.
I hate
You're
infants.
You're very.
They're so lazy. But
They're constantly they shit themselves. But that's my biggest complaint with you is your anti-babyism. Right, but so you're saying you're not thinking about it.
Well, that's what I would add. That's the answer in my head. That seems pretty clean, an answer. But then I know there's other things too that when I am working with women, I do feel that there's this sense of something's gone out the window. There's a lot of bullshit that's been thrown away, and now we're getting down to the real creativity and the real work. And maybe working with men, no matter how clean it's going on, there's always maybe some kind of competition or ego or other qualities in the room that you can't put your finger on, which everything has to be filtered through. So, for some reason, the females, like working with Loretta Lynn or Alicia Keys or something like that, Wanda Jackson, it seems like that just goes out the window, and we get down to the work faster. So I definitely think there's an appeal to it for me, and we become very equal, very fast, and on the same page, very fast. Someone told me one time, like it was some goofy thing. Someone told me, it was something I read an article about. It must have been some goofy thing about dating or guys getting women interested in them, and it was something like women like to be shown things. So women like to be taught things. Excuse me. Women like to be taught new things. And I thought that's such an interesting thing, is to single out females, that they like to be taught new things. Don't we all like to learn new things? I think about this all the time. I don't know if that's actually something that's. Do you find anything about that statement? I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm completely mystified by women to this day, and I have been obsessed with them since I was like 6, and
Took you that long?
It took me till 6. Yeah, I was bi till I was 6.
Yeah.
But I was, yeah, I don't. I know that there's a completely different dynamic when you're working with women, which can be fantastic. And comedy gets this reputation for being completely sexist, which is, I think, well-earned. And then, over the years, and then whenever I've worked with a Tina Fey or an Amy Poehler or a Sarah Silverman, their sex you don't even think about it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
If you're thinking about it,
Right.
there's something else at play.
Yeah.
But when you're working, there's so many brilliant women comics and writers out there, and it just doesn't come into play. You just admire them. It's like, that's great. They're great, and you want to try and impress them. With maybe I can be as funny as you.
It's also a new era that maybe the first in history, maybe in a way, that men and women can work together in a way that is totally acceptable to accomplish the task at hand. Maybe it wasn't 100 years ago to a man and a woman to be in a room together working on something by themselves would have been, what were you doing? You were working alone with them?
This is quite improper.
Yeah, or even taking it all the way back, in some sort of biological way of, that I wonder what that was like, thousands of years ago. But what you said earlier reminded me that it is something, let's say I would work with Loretta Lynn and things would be working and cooking and beautiful things were happening, and then later on it's like, she's not only a woman, she's an older woman, twice my age or whatever it is, and why is it working so easily? We come from two different worlds completely, but for some reason in the room it's making complete sense. And there's something I've learned a lot about that, about just relationships outside of that between me and women, that there's a lot to be learned from that relationships in a home or marriage, there's something to be learned from that, where you're always working together. In a relationship, you're always working with the other person to get somewhere. I think people have an ideal that maybe getting in a marriage or getting in a relationship or a marriage is, having a wedding or something, and it stays flat and it stays peaceful for the rest of your life. You find a comfort zone, it stays peaceful, but it's not true. It's constant work. Again, you have to keep throwing fuel on the fire to keep it alive, and keep it. Albert Einstein said that marriage is an attempt at making something lasting out of an incident, and I think he's right. I think all his relationships.
His wife hated that saying.
She hated that. Yeah.
It's like it's the crappiest Hallmark card you ever sent me. He's like, "What? I always mess it up." This brings up another area, which is just idols, like you working with a Loretta Lynn or Wanda Jackson. You're working with these people, and it's something I've confronted where I really love it when you forget that they're your idols. And I know you were nice enough to have me over to your house once, and we're sitting on your front porch, and you were talking about Bob Dylan, and it felt like you had gotten past the point of, oh my God, it's Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a good way. Obviously it's Bob Dylan, but you're not doing that artist a favor.
Yeah.
When you put someone on that kind of pedestal, you're killing them. When you put an artist up there, you're killing them.
It's very
and it
dangerous
felt like
to talk to them and meet them, and
and I feel like you have that ability to, I don't know. You were telling me, Bob Dylan wants to do the welding on my fence because he's into welding now. And I was just like, well, that's great. You broke through the. So what was it like to record Tangled Up? And you broke through that and got to, I think I can fix your gate.
He knows. I mean, I've said it before. I mean, he's like my dad. I mean, musically, in my own mind, and the heritage that I feel like I jumped in this running river already. I just jumped in. He's like a father to me. So much so that I couldn't read his book, his autobiography. I couldn't read it. I kept picking it up, and I would read 10 pages, and I had to put it down. I couldn't.
Why?
It was just too close. It sounds crazy, but it was too close to me. I couldn't take it. It was like reading a letter my own father had written to me, and I'd found in his closet after he died or something like that. And it took me probably like 3 or 4 tries before I could actually get through and read the book. It meant too much, all the words, because it was like advice with the hand around your shoulder, advice that I knew when I was reading them. It was different for people who are music fans or Dylan fans or other musicians or something like that. It just was totally different for me. And to read those words, they feel like they're directly pointed at me. And I started to get obsessed with the fact that people are misunderstanding the style that this is written, and they're misunderstanding the point that's being made in this paragraph. And he does that a lot to me, like anything that he's doing, and it's hard for you to feel like that when you feel like there is an Albert Einstein alive right now, that Bob Dylan's alive right now, and that I can be that close to him and that far apart from him at the same time, simultaneously. You never can, in a lot of ways, get super close to somebody like that you don't have that much history with, And obviously,
it's not just you, though. Do you think anybody can get that close? I mean, he's a notorious.
Well, to him, to everybody, and even for anybody, for any of your idols, I'm sure like you could maybe have had a conversation with Johnny Carson and learned a lot in 30 seconds, or even hung out and stayed for a week with him somewhere, but how close can you get to Johnny Carson? And I don't know. I'm assuming that it might be hard to break through that, but you just take whatever you can get, because it's all.
Yeah. I've the several conversations I had with Johnny Carson in my life are embedded in. They're little diamonds in my brain, and I know. I can remember the flashing light on the phone when they said, "Oh yeah, he's on that line." I remember the light flashing and. But you're right. At the same time, I'll be the first to say I knew him. I didn't know him at all. So, and it's funny because there's someone like Dylan who's constantly, you look at rock and roll, and I've had this thought before, which is there's only so many chords. There's a few chords. There's a few, and you feel like there's got to be a limit to, but people like you can take this, it really is restricted, I mean, in a way. You know what I mean? There's not that many, you can take that palette and keep coming up with new stuff. I've had periods of my life where I've thought, maybe rock and roll is done. Maybe we've done everything with E, A, B7, maybe an occasional E minor, A minor. You know what I mean? Like maybe we've done it all. But Bob Dylan, I don't know. You just think of the simplicity of it. Or Buddy Holly. Someone I really used to get off on because I thought, oh my God, he really is just using 3 chords, occasionally a 4th chord, but it's the it's the pattern that he's putting it down.
Yeah, and it's so simple, and
but it's not too.
Yeah, he's sideswiping you. You know, he's like throwing sand in your face and then coming around from the back and patting you on the back. It's unbelievable what Buddy Holly accomplishes song by song. I mean, you know, it's all people say, oh, it's too bad these people died, and we never got to, you know, what would they have done if they moved on? But him especially, man, it's something peculiar about him. There's just certain people like Michael Jackson or Buddy Holly or Hank Williams that are just, they're like aliens. They weren't really supposed to be here or something. You know, how do you born that way, and how do things connect with your brain and come out your fingers in that way? And if you catch a glimpse of it, if you're ever part of something that's created that connects with another human being or connects with many human beings, it's a very humbling experience to even think that it's possible, you know, that you can connect with. You know, if you're going on to your show and there's how many millions of people watching that or will watch it on the internet or something like that, and that means something. I mean, it means something, and it's inexplainable. You can't explain to it why it works or why it happens. You can try to explain it, but it's really, I don't know what other word, but magical or something like that. But words to that effect that are. It's what my point is. When you live inside of it and you create every day, and I want to create every day, that you don't get to know why it works, really. Yeah. You don't really get to know. You see it working and you know it worked, but you don't really get to know why it worked. And I think maybe that's sometimes I'm fascinated with certain scientific things, because I think as much as statements are made and papers are printed and reported, a lot of science they'll never know. You know, we don't know why the red spot on Jupiter really is doing that storm. You know, why is it lasting for hundreds of years? We don't really know. We can tell you certain aspects about it, but that's pretty compatible to a lot of things.
You like not knowing? I like not knowing.
It's beautiful at times.
You know what bummed me out? When I was a kid, my brother Neil and I were obsessed with the Titanic. This amazing ship that like sailed off, and then it disappeared and no one ever saw it again. And people survived, some people survived and talked about what happened, but no one had conflicting stories, and I loved that. And then they found it. And then they not only found it, but they mapped every quarter of an inch of it. And I remembered thinking, oh, and then they told you in a computer-generated way exactly how it came apart and exactly what happened. And I was disappointed, because there was something about sailing off into the fog, and there's something about music that I like about, you know, I don't know, the magic of the old blues musician who died young and was poisoned, and there's 2 photographs of him in existence, and we don't know much. I don't want to know more than that. I think there's something beautiful about that.
The romance of that is unbelievable, and you know, a lot of times I find myself whining and complaining about the generation that I'm part of now, because it's so much tougher. I mean, if you imagine that something amazing right now was a Leonardo da Vinci existed right now, he would be just inundated with people just trying to exploit him on levels that he would never have been bothered with a few centuries ago. And all things that would be detrimental to him, you know, and his genius and all that like that.
What about this, too, which is that you had a period of time where you're in Detroit, which is an overlooked city. No, there's not a lot of media there, so you could cook for a while. And what I've always said is, people ask me my complaint, or not my complaint, because you live in the era you live in, but if the Beatles were around today, would be sick of them before they ever got out of the Cavern Club.
Right.
There'd be a million YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There'd be no discovery
Yeah.
on. We had to discover things. People, you know, it's the.
But you can't teach. We won't be able to really teach the masses in that way. It's like teaching everyone to recycle or something. Like teaching everybody to understand the importance of letting something beautiful be.
Right.
You know, watch a show instead of pulling this up and using proof and using some other thing to your friends to prove something or Twitter it or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, can something beautiful just be like that? And that's the danger of where we are right now and where we're headed. It's. I hate to always be thinking about that, but when you consume, when you're sitting there and you're entertained or you're enjoying art and music and books and films, you can have different opinion. When you're inside of it and you want to make it exist and you're trying to help it exist and be an antenna and make this stuff come out, you're more concerned with the fact that the way people are getting it, the mediums and formats from which they're getting it, is diluting the romance of it.
Right.
You know, and it's an exhausting battle to fight off that nowadays.
Well, there's too much data.
Yeah,
We have too much.
There is. You know, a band like Stooges in the 1970 would have
Right.
had 3 photographs of them taken.
Right.
And now there's thousands of every band out there or musician out there. Thousands of photos. You know, nobody knew where the Stooges lived or what they did all day long or anything like that. And
Now
for
it's-
sure, Robert Johnson, nobody knew what he was doing.
But you know what? That's where you get myth.
Yeah.
Myth. The thing that fuels myth is lack of information. I have a question here. Kelly Mraz from Facebook asked, "What kind of music do your kids listen to? Do you try to influence their musical taste?"
I don't ever force stuff on them. I at times expose them to things, and sometimes they don't like it, and sometimes they do. And I'm always shocked at the things they like. That, you know, my daughter likes Charlie Chaplin so much. It's just shocking to me. They had heard some Beatles songs and started liking them, and I was driving from Detroit to Nashville a few weeks ago, and I said, well, listen to this record, and it was Sgt. Pepper, and I put it on the car, and I handed them whatever it was, and they could see the album cover. And, you know, they just looked at it so much, and they had so many questions about the album cover. And it was so beautiful to just be on this drive and to think about Sgt. Pepper again, which I haven't thought about in whatever, since I was a teenager, and to talk about all the faces on there, how that was made, why they were making it. When kids ask you those questions, you get to relive those moments, which is really beautiful, you know, and they listen to lots of things like that. The Ramones, the Beatles.
Oh, that's great. They listen to the Ramones.
Yeah, they like that. And but they also like, which I like even more importantly, is novelty songs. I like things like Crazy Frog and those kind of songs because I think, you know, like or Monster Mash. Those tracks are really culturally important.
Yeah.
You know?
Monster Mash is fantastic.
Yeah, and if a kid likes it, it's a good. It's
They
a
cut
hit.
through.
They're
They know.
not lying. You know, they're
They
not
know.
lying.
I wish we could talk for about 4 more years. I think that would be detrimental to both our careers. So I got to end it.
Thanks for talking to me like this.
This
man. I
is
appreciate it. It's a breath of fresh air.
This has been fantastic. I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed every second of our chat, and the drinking helped. That'll do it for this episode of Serious Jibber Jabber. To say I thank Jack White would be the understatement of the century. You've always been such a good friend to me, and such but such a pure spirit too. And so
likewise.
Really appreciate that. Congratulations on all your success. I'd wish you happiness, but I know that's detrimental to your art, so I won't. To see all the other episodes of Serious Jibber Jabber, go to teamcoco.com/serious.
Or go to Conan's house and he'll reenact them for you.
You're all invited to my home, and I will reenact these with little cutouts on popsicle sticks for $20 a pop.
If you ever need me to do a soundtrack for any of that stuff, just let me know.
Really?
Yeah.
So will you really upholster my
stuff?
furniture?
Yes.
You heard it here.
You look into that camera, not looking at this one.
Huh? There's nothing shiftier than guys looking at different cameras. Good night.